Princess Elindra Valsorath stood at the edge of the grand hall and watched her husband make a fool of himself. At least, that was how she saw it. The human called Kang Taiwan moved through the crowd of Velhari nobles like a small fish swimming among sharks. He smiled at every insult hidden behind polite words. He bowed at every dismissive gesture. He thanked lords who clearly despised him for the honor of their conversation. It had been 1 month since their wedding. 1 month since Elindra had bound herself to this creature from a young, unremarkable world called Earth. 1 month of watching him accept humiliation with a gentle smile. She hated every moment of it. "Your husband seems to be enjoying himself," said Lord Kethrall, appearing at her side. The tall warrior made no effort to hide his contempt. "Though I wonder if he understands that Lord Voss just compared him to a trained pet." Elindra's silver skin flickered with embarrassment. "He understands enough." "Does he? Humans are such simple creatures, short lives, weak bodies, primitive technology until recently." Kethrall shook his head slowly. "I still cannot believe your father agreed to this union. The daughter of Emperor Valdros, married to a human. The galaxy must be laughing at us." Elindra said nothing. She had made the same arguments to her father many times, but the Emperor had made his decision, and his word was law. She remembered the day he had explained it to her. 6 months ago, a Velari colony on the border had come under attack by raiders. The nearest Velari fleet was 3 days away, but a small human patrol ship had been passing through the system. Instead of running, the humans had stayed. They had fought against impossible odds and held the colony until reinforcements arrived. The humans had lost their ship and most of their crew, but every Velhari civilian had survived. Her father had been fascinated. Humans were supposed to be weak. They lived less than 100 years. Their bodies broke easily. They had only discovered faster-than-light travel 2 centuries ago. And yet these humans had chosen to die for strangers. "I must understand them better," the Emperor had said. "And what better way than to bring one into our family?" So Elindra had been given to Kang Tae-wan, a human diplomat who had volunteered for the role. She had expected someone impressive. Instead, she got a quiet man of average height with soft features and gentle eyes. He spoke Velhari well enough, but rarely said anything worth hearing. He moved through the palace like a ghost, always polite, never memorable. Across the hall, Taiwan was now speaking with Lady Sareth, one of the most poisonous tongues at court. Elindra watched the old noble say something that made nearby Velhari snicker. Taiwan simply nodded and gave a small bow of acknowledgement. Elindra felt her hands curl into fists. Did the man have no pride at all? When the evening finally ended, she found him in their shared quarters. He was removing his formal jacket, moving with the same calm efficiency he brought to everything. "You know they mock you," she said without greeting. "Every single one of them. They think you are weak and foolish." Taiwan hung up his jacket carefully. "Yes. That is all you have to say?" "Yes?" He turned to face her. His eyes were dark and deep, and for a moment she thought she saw something flicker in them. But then it was gone, replaced by his usual mild expression. "What would you have me do, Your Highness? Challenge them to combat? Start diplomatic incidents because someone hurt my feelings?" He shook his head. "Words are just words. Words shape reality. Words are power. Then let them waste their power on words." He moved toward his private chamber. "Good night, Princess." Elindra stood alone in the common room, furious. She had been married to a coward, a smiling, bowing, pathetic coward who would not defend himself against the weakest insult. She thought about the humans who had died defending the colony. They had been warriors. They had been brave. How could they be the same species as this man? Perhaps Earth had sent their weakest member to marry her. Perhaps it was their own insult hidden behind diplomacy. The thought made her angrier. That night, Alindra could not sleep. She walked the palace corridors alone, as she often did when troubled. The guards knew her habits and did not interfere. She found herself near the guest wing where the human delegation stayed. Ambassador Yoon Ha-na had quarters there, along with a small support staff. Alindra had spoken to the ambassador several times. The woman was sharp and clever, nothing like Tae-wan. A light caught her eye. One of the windows overlooking the inner gardens was glowing faintly. Curious, Alindra moved closer. The window looked down into a private courtyard, surrounded by high walls and rarely used. In the center of the courtyard, lit by the soft glow of Sorath Prime's 3 moons, stood a figure. It was Tae-wan. He wore simple clothes, loose and dark. In his hands he held a long, curved blade. Alindra had seen it once before, wrapped in cloth among his possessions. She had assumed it was a ceremonial object, a decoration. Now she watched as he began to move. The blade caught the moonlight as it swept through the air. Tae-wan's body flowed from stance to stance with perfect control. There was no wasted motion. Every step, every cut, every turn was precise and deliberate. Alindra had trained with Velhari weapons masters since childhood. She knew what skilled combat looked like, and what she saw in that garden was not the fumbling of an amateur. Tae-wan moved faster. The blade became a blur of silver. He spun, cut, thrust, and recovered in combinations that seemed impossible for a human body. His face was calm, almost peaceful, but his movements were those of a predator. Then, as quickly as it had begun, it ended. He brought the blade down slowly and stood in perfect stillness. His breathing was even and controlled. Alindra pulled back from the window. Her heart was beating fast. Who was this man? She thought of every time he had smiled at an insult, every time he had bowed to mockery, every time he had let lords and ladies treat him like nothing. He could have defended himself. He could have demanded respect. He had chosen not to. Why? Alindra returned to her quarters with more questions than answers. She lay in her bed and stared at the ceiling, trying to reconcile what she had seen. Her husband was not what he appeared to be. The harmless diplomat with the gentle smile was hiding something dangerous. For the first time since her wedding, Princess Alindra Val Sorath felt something other than disappointment toward her human husband. She felt curious. 2 months had passed since the wedding, and Alindra had developed a new habit. She watched her husband. Not openly, of course. A princess did not follow anyone around like a curious child. But she paid attention now. She noticed things she had ignored before. Tae-wan woke every morning before the sun rose. He left his quarters silently and did not return for several hours. When he came back, his hair was slightly damp and his expression was peaceful. She had thought he was bathing or meditating. Now she knew better. He ate simply, choosing plain foods over the rich dishes of the Velhari court. He slept little but never seemed tired. He moved through crowded rooms with an awareness that seemed almost supernatural, always knowing where everyone was without appearing to look. And his hands. Alindra had finally looked closely at his hands. They were covered in calluses, hard spots of thick skin that came from years of gripping something rough. Diplomats did not have hands like that. Warriors did. But she told no one what she had seen. Not even her father. Something made her want to keep this secret a little longer. She wanted to understand it first. At the grand state dinner that week, Lord Kethral made his boldest move yet. The great hall was filled with nobles from across the empire. Tae-wan sat beside Alindra at the high table, eating quietly and making polite conversation with those who bothered to speak to him. Most did not. Kethral rose from his seat and walked toward them. He moved like a predator, all muscle and confidence. His scarred face showed a cruel smile. "Human," he said, loud enough for the entire hall to hear. "I have been thinking about your people." Taewon looked up calmly. "Oh? I hope the thoughts were pleasant ones, Lord Kethral." "They were curious ones." Kethral circled the table slowly. "You see, I cannot understand why the Emperor would burden his own daughter with a pet from a primitive world. Earth has no great warriors, no ancient military tradition. You learned to travel between stars only yesterday by galactic standards." The hall had gone quiet. Everyone was watching. "We are a young species," Taewon agreed. "We have much to learn from the Velhari." "You have much to learn from everyone." Kethral laughed. "Tell me, human, on your world, how do you settle disputes between men? Do you have debates, poetry competitions? Perhaps you cry at each other until someone gives up?" Several nobles laughed at this. Elindra felt heat rise in her cheeks. Taewon smiled. It was the same gentle smile he always wore. "We have many ways, Lord Kethral. Some involve words, some involve actions. We try to match the response to the situation." "And what situation are we in now?" "A dinner party, I believe." Taewon picked up his glass. "The food is excellent, by the way. My compliments to your kitchen staff." Kethral's smile faded. He had wanted a reaction. He had wanted anger or fear or shame. Instead, he got politeness. "You are either very wise or very stupid," the Lord said. "I have not decided which." "Perhaps both," Taewon replied. "My wife often suggests the second option." This actually drew some genuine laughter from the crowd. Even Elindra found herself surprised by the joke at his own expense. Kethral returned to his seat, frustrated. He had failed to humiliate the human in the way he wanted. But Elindra knew he would try again. Men like Kethral always did. After the dinner, Ambassador Yoon Ha-na requested a private meeting with Elindra. They met in a small garden where they could not be overheard. "Your Highness," Ha-na said, bowing in the human fashion, "thank you for agreeing to see me. You wanted to discuss my husband. I wanted to answer a question you might have." Ha-na's eyes were sharp and knowing. "You have been watching him more closely lately. I assume you have seen something that confused you." Elindra kept her face neutral. "Why do you think that?" "Because everyone watches Taewon eventually, and everyone becomes confused." Ha-na smiled slightly. "He has that effect on people." "Why did Earth send him? Of all the humans you could have chosen for this marriage, why him?" Hana was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Because he was the right person. He accepts every insult. He responds to mockery with smiles. He acts as if he has no pride at all." "Does he?" Hana tilted her head. "Or does he simply not care about the opinions of people who do not matter?" Elindra frowned. "Everyone at that dinner matters. They are the most powerful nobles in the empire." "Powerful in your empire, yes, but Taewon sees power differently." Hana paused. "Your Highness, may I ask you something?" "Go ahead." "What makes someone dangerous? Is it loud threats? Obvious strength? The ability to frighten others with words and posture?" Elindra thought about it. "Those things can be dangerous, yes. They can be, but the truly dangerous ones are different." Hana looked toward the palace, where lights glowed in 100 windows. "The truly dangerous ones are quiet. They wait, they watch, and when they finally act, it is already too late for everyone else." "You are saying my husband is dangerous?" Hana smiled again. "I am saying that Earth sent exactly the right person for this marriage. You will understand eventually, Your Highness. I hope that when you do, you will be pleased." She bowed and left. Elindra stood alone in the garden, thinking about the ambassador's words. They matched what she had seen with her own eyes. The sword practice in the moonlight. The calloused hands. The awareness that never seemed to rest. She made a decision. The next morning, she woke before dawn and followed her husband. She moved through the palace shadows with skills she had learned as a child when she used to spy on her father's war councils for fun. Tae-wan walked to the same private courtyard. He did not notice her watching from the hidden balcony above. She saw him unwrap his sword with something like reverence. She saw him bow to the blade before he began. And then she watched him practice. It was different seeing it up close. She could hear the whisper of the blade cutting air. She could see the perfect control in every muscle. She could feel the focus radiating from him like heat. He practiced for 2 hours without rest. Forms she did not recognize flowed into each other like water. Some movements were slow and graceful. Others were so fast she could barely track them. When he finished, he cleaned the blade carefully and wrapped it again. Then he simply sat in the garden, watching the sun rise, perfectly still. Elindra left before he could discover her, but she returned to her quarters with a new understanding. Her husband was not a coward pretending to be strong. He was something far more interesting. He was a warrior pretending to be weak, and she wanted to know why. The diplomatic summit was held on a massive space station in neutral territory. Dozens of species had sent representatives. For many of them, this would be their first close look at a human. Elindra watched her husband prepare for the event. He chose simple dark clothing that made him look even more ordinary. No jewelry, no medals. Nothing that would draw attention. "You could wear the ceremonial robes," she said. "They would make you look more impressive." Tae-wan smiled. "I do not need to look impressive, Your Highness. The other species will judge humanity by your appearance. First impressions matter." "They do." He adjusted his collar. "But I prefer to make second impressions. They tend to last longer." Elindra did not understand what he meant, but she was learning not to dismiss his words so quickly. The summit was overwhelming. Species of every shape and size filled the great conference halls. Some walked on 2 legs, others on 4 or 6. Some floated in anti-gravity fields. Some communicated through sound, others through light or chemical signals. The Velhari delegation attracted respect wherever they went. The empire was old and powerful, and other species treated them accordingly. But when they noticed Tae-wan walking beside Elindra, the reactions changed. Curiosity, confusion, sometimes open amusement. "Is that a human?" she heard one delegate whisper. "They are so small." "I heard they live less than 100 years, another replied. "Barely enough time to learn anything." "Why would the Velhari princess marry one? Is it some kind of joke?" Tae-wan seemed not to hear any of it. He walked calmly beside Elindra, observing everything with quiet interest. Then they encountered the Krath. The Krath Dominion was known throughout the galaxy for their aggression. They were tall, reptilian creatures with armored scales and clawed hands. They had conquered dozens of worlds through pure military force. Even the Velhari treated them with caution. A Krath delegate stepped directly into Tae-wan's path. He was massive, easily twice the human size. His yellow eyes fixed on Tae-wan with predatory interest. "Human," the Krath said. His voice was a deep growl. "I have never seen one of your kind up close." "Then I am happy to satisfy your curiosity," Tae-wan replied. He did not step back. He did not flinch. He simply stood there, looking up at the creature towering over him. The Krath leaned closer. "You seem very calm for something so fragile. I could break you with one hand." "You could try." The Krath's eyes widened slightly. Other delegates had stopped to watch. Even Elindra felt tension building in her chest. Is that a threat, little human? No. Taewon's voice remained soft and even. It is an observation. You could try to break me. Whether you would succeed is a different question. Whether you would enjoy the attempt is yet another. The Krath stared at him. Seconds passed. The silence grew heavy. Then the Krath laughed, a harsh barking sound. You have spirit. I did not expect that from your kind. He stepped aside. Perhaps humans are more interesting than I thought. Perhaps, Taewon agreed. He walked past the Krath as if nothing had happened. Elindra followed, her mind racing. She had seen Velhari warriors flinch under Krath intimidation. She had seen experienced diplomats stammer and retreat. But her husband, this quiet man everyone dismissed as harmless, had faced down a Krath without blinking. Later that evening, they had a moment alone in their temporary quarters. Elindra could not hold back any longer. How did you do that? Taewon was making tea, a human ritual he performed every evening. Do what? The Krath. He was trying to frighten you. I have seen that technique work on warriors twice your size, but you did not react at all. I reacted. I simply did not react the way he expected. Taewon poured hot water over dried leaves. Fear is a choice, Your Highness. When someone tries to make you afraid, you can choose to accept their gift or refuse it. That sounds like philosophy. It is. Humans have been thinking about fear and courage for thousands of years. He offered her a cup. Would you like some? It is calming. She took the cup, more out of curiosity than desire. The liquid was pale and smelled faintly of flowers. I saw you, she said quietly. In the garden, practicing with your sword. Taewon's hands paused for just a moment. Then he continued pouring his own tea. I wondered if you had. Why did you not tell me? You did not ask. He sat down across from her. And I thought you preferred to see me as harmless. It seemed easier for both of us. Easier for whom? For you. Because it confirmed what you wanted to believe. For me, because it meant fewer questions. He sipped his tea. But I think you have questions now. Many questions. Then ask them. Elindra chose her words carefully. The sword. It is not decorative. You have trained with it for years. Since I was 7 years old. The art is called Haedong Gumdo, the way of the Korean sword. Korean? My homeland on Earth. A small peninsula, but proud. We have been warriors for thousands of years. He smiled slightly. Though we prefer not to advertise it. Why hide it? The Velhari respect warriors. If they knew what you were, they would treat you differently. Would they? Taewon set down his cup. Or would they simply see me as a threat to be dealt with, a challenge to be met? Sometimes it is better to be underestimated, Your Highness. The sword that stays in its sheath is often more dangerous than the one that is drawn, because no one knows what it can do. Exactly? His eyes met hers, and for the first time, she saw something fierce hiding behind the gentleness. A blade that is never seen cannot be measured, cannot be prepared for, cannot be countered. The galaxy looks at humans and sees weakness. That is not a mistake we are eager to correct. Elindra felt something shift in her chest. You planned this. All of it. The smiles, the bowing, the acceptance of insults. It is all deliberate. I would not say planned, more like cultivated. Humans have learned that the galaxy often mistakes kindness for weakness. We have decided to use that mistake rather than fight it. That is deceptive. That is survival. He leaned back. We are a young species, Princess. We cannot match the Velhari in age or power. We cannot match the Krath in aggression. So we must match everyone in ways they do not expect. Patience, observation, and when necessary, precision. They sat in silence for a while, drinking tea. Elindra found that she liked the taste. Subtle, but with hidden depths, rather like her husband. "I believe I have misjudged you," she finally said. "Most people do. It is useful. And if I choose to see you clearly now, the real you, not the mask?" Tae-Wan smiled. It was different from his usual smile, warmer, more genuine. "Then perhaps we can finally have honest conversations, Your Highness. I would like that very much." Elindra returned the smile. For the first time since her wedding, she felt something other than duty toward this man. She felt the beginning of respect. The whispers had been growing for weeks. Elindra heard them in the corridors, in the gardens, in the quiet corners of the palace where nobles thought they were alone. Lord Kethral was planning something. His faction had grown bolder since the diplomatic summit. The state dinner humiliation had only made him more determined. He gathered supporters who shared his hatred of the human alliance, who believed that Velhari blood was being polluted by association with lesser species. Elindra tried to ignore the whispers, but they grew louder every day. "The human must be removed," she heard one noble say. "The marriage is an insult to everything the Empire represents." "Kethral has a plan," another replied. "Something that will expose the human for what he really is. A coward, a weakling, unworthy of our princess." She wanted to tell them they were wrong. She wanted to describe what she had seen in the moonlit garden, the warrior hiding behind the diplomat's mask. But she held her tongue. Whatever Tae-Wan's reasons for hiding his true nature, she would not expose him without his permission. Ambassador Yunha Na arrived at her quarters one afternoon with urgency in her eyes. "Your Highness, we need to speak privately." They walked to a secure room where listening devices could not reach. Hana's expression was grave. "Our intelligence network has intercepted communications. Lord Kethral is planning to challenge Tae-Wan to ritual combat." Elindra felt cold. Trial by combat? That tradition has not been invoked for decades. But it still exists. The law says any noble can challenge the honor of a foreign consort. If the consort refuses to fight, the marriage is declared shameful and can be dissolved. If the consort fights and loses, Hana did not need to finish. "Kethral is one of the finest warriors in the Empire. He has won dozens of duels." "I know." Hana's voice was calm, but her eyes were worried. "He is also twice Tae-Wan's size and has centuries of combat experience. By any reasonable measure, he should win easily." "Should?" Hana smiled slightly. "You have seen Tae-Wan practice. What do you think?" Elindra did not know what to think. Her husband was skilled, that much was clear. But Kethral was a legend. He had fought in wars that happened before humans discovered fire. "When will this challenge happen?" "Soon. Within the week, according to our sources." Hana touched Elindra's arm. "You should warn him." That evening, Elindra did something she had never done before. She went to her father. Emperor Valdros Valsorath sat on his private throne, surrounded by star maps and military reports. He was ancient, his silver skin darkened with age, but his violet eyes were still sharp. "Daughter, this is unexpected." "Father, I need you to stop Lord Kethral. He is planning to challenge my husband to ritual combat." The Emperor was silent for a long moment. Then he said, "I know." "You know? And you are allowing it?" "I am observing it." Valdros folded his hands. "Kethral has been a problem for some time. His faction threatens the stability of my court. This challenge will force the situation to resolve itself one way or another." "One way or another?" "Father, if Tae-Wan loses, he dies. If he refuses, our alliance with Earth collapses." "Yes." The Emperor's expression did not change. "And if he wins, Kethral's faction is humiliated, and the alliance is strengthened beyond anything diplomacy could achieve." Elindra stared at her father. You are testing him. You are testing humanity. I am gathering information. Valdros leaned forward. When the humans saved our colony, I became curious about them. Curious enough to arrange this marriage. But curiosity is not trust. If your husband is what he appears to be, a harmless diplomat, then perhaps the alliance was a mistake. But if he is something more, then what? Then I will know that humanity is worth taking seriously, and so will every noble in my empire. Elindra left her father's chambers with anger burning in her chest. Her husband was being used as a test subject. His life was being risked to satisfy her father's curiosity. She found Taiwan in the garden where he practiced. He was sitting peacefully, watching the sunset. His sword lay wrapped beside him. You know, do you not? She said without greeting. About Kethral's challenge? Yes. Ambassador Hana informed me this morning. And you are just sitting here? I am preparing. He patted the ground beside him. Would you like to sit? She did not want to sit. She wanted to scream at him, to shake him, to make him understand the danger, but something in his calm manner stopped her. She sat. Kethral has won every duel he has ever fought, she said. He has centuries of experience. He is twice your size and 3 times your weight. Yes. He will try to kill you. Probably. And you are not afraid? Taiwan was quiet for a moment. Then he said, I am always afraid, Elindra. Fear is natural. Fear is useful. It tells us when something is important. He looked at her, and his eyes were gentle. But fear and panic are different things. I can be afraid and still think clearly. I can be afraid and still act correctly. How can you be so calm about this? Because I have been preparing for moments like this my entire life. He touched the wrapped sword beside him. On Earth, we have a saying. The master has failed more times than the beginner has tried. I have trained thousands of hours. I have faced opponents who wanted to hurt me. I have learned what I am capable of. And what are you capable of? He smiled. It was not his diplomat's smile. It was something sharper. You will see. Elindra felt tears threatening her eyes. She did not understand why. She barely knew this man. A month ago, she had thought him worthless. Do you want me to refuse the challenge? He asked softly. I will, if you ask. We can find another way. She looked at him, the quiet man with gentle eyes who had endured every insult with grace, the hidden warrior who practiced alone in moonlit gardens, the husband she was only beginning to know. No, she said. I do not want you to refuse. Then what do you want? She reached out and took his hand. It was the first time she had touched him willingly since their wedding ceremony. I want you to survive. His fingers closed around hers, warm, steady, strong. Then I will. They sat together in the garden as the last light faded from the sky. Tomorrow, everything would change. But for now, this moment was enough. For the first time, Elindra realized she did not want to lose this man. Not to Kethral, not to politics, not to anything. And that scared her more than any challenge ever could. The Imperial arena had not seen a trial by combat in 30 years, but today, every seat was filled. Nobles from across the Empire had traveled through the night to witness this moment. The galleries glittered with silver skin and fine clothing. Thousands of violet eyes watched the sand-covered floor, where 2 figures would soon meet. Elindra sat in the royal box beside her father. Her hands were folded in her lap, perfectly still. Inside, her heart was racing. Lord Kethral entered first. The crowd roared with approval. He was a vision of Velhari military perfection. His armor was ceremonial but functional, decorated with the symbols of his many victories. His weapon was a traditional HFY war blade, long and curved, designed for power and reach. He raised it to the crowd, and they cheered louder. Then Taiwan entered. The cheering stopped. A murmur of confusion rippled through the arena. The human wore no armor, just simple dark clothing, loose and practical. He carried no shield, no helmet, nothing to protect himself. In his hands was a single sword, shorter than Kethral's blade, with a slight curve and no decoration. He looked small, he looked vulnerable, he looked like exactly what everyone had always believed him to be. "Is this a joke?" someone whispered in the galleries. "He cannot be serious." Elindra saw the smile on Kethral's face. The HFY Lord was already celebrating his victory. Emperor Valdros rose to speak. His voice echoed through the arena. "Lord Kethral has invoked the ancient right of trial by combat. He challenges the honor of Kang Tae-wan, human consort to Princess Elindra. The combat will continue until one participant yields or can no longer fight. Let the ancestors witness this contest." He sat down. The arena fell silent. Kethral strode to the center of the sand. "Come, human, let us finish this quickly. I promise to make it painless." Tae-wan walked forward. His steps were unhurried, his breathing calm. He stopped 10 paces from his opponent. "Lord Kethral," he said, his voice carrying clearly despite its softness. "I offer you the chance to withdraw your challenge. There is no shame in changing your mind." Laughter erupted from the crowd. Even Kethral laughed. "You offer me the chance to withdraw? Little human, do you understand what is about to happen?" "I understand perfectly." Tae-wan raised his sword. "I am simply giving you the opportunity to reconsider. You will not get another." Something in his voice made the laughter fade. For just a moment, uncertainty flickered in Kethral's eyes. Then it was gone. "Enough talk. Defend yourself." Kethral attacked. The HFY Lord moved with explosive speed. His blade swept down in an arc that should have ended the fight in a single stroke. The power behind it could cut through starship armor. Tae-wan was not there. He had moved, not backward as everyone expected, sideways and forward, slipping past the deadly arc like water flowing around a stone. Kethral spun, surprised. He struck again, a horizontal slash aimed at cutting the human in half. Again, Tae-wan was not there. He moved with an economy of motion that seemed impossible. No wasted energy, no panic, just precise repositioning that kept him exactly where the blade was not. The crowd began to murmur. This was not what they had expected. Kethral attacked again and again. His strikes grew faster, more powerful, more desperate. Each one would have killed an ordinary opponent. Each one found only air. Tae-wan did not strike back. He simply moved, evaded, redirected. He let Kethral exhaust himself against nothing. "Stand still," Kethral roared. "Fight me like a warrior." "I am fighting you," Tae-wan replied. He was not even breathing hard. "You simply have not realized it yet." Elindra watched with her heart in her throat. She understood now what she was seeing. This was not cowardice. This was strategy. Tae-wan was letting Kethral burn through his energy, his patience, his focus. He was waiting for the perfect moment. Kethral launched his most powerful attack yet. He put everything into a devastating overhead strike, the kind that had killed dozens of opponents over the centuries. Tae-wan moved. What happened next was almost too fast to see. The human stepped inside the arc of the blade, impossibly close, where Kethral's weapon could not reach. His own sword flashed once, twice. The first cut severed Kethral's blade at the hilt. The weapon that had been forged from the finest HFY steel that had survived centuries of combat fell to the sand in 2 pieces. The second cut drew a line across Kethral's chest armor. The material parted like cloth. A thin line of violet blood appeared. Before Kethral could react, Tae-wan's blade was at his throat. The arena was absolutely silent. "Yield," Taewon said quietly. Only those closest could hear him. "There is no honor in your death today. Your life still has value. Your people still need you. Yield and live." Kethral stared into the human's eyes. Whatever he saw there made his face go pale. I yield." Taewon lowered his blade. He stepped back and bowed formally. Then he turned and walked toward the royal box, leaving Kethral standing alone on the sand. The silence stretched for a long moment. Then someone began to clap. Others joined. Within seconds, the entire arena was roaring, not with mockery, but with genuine amazement. Elindra rose to her feet. She did not care about protocol. She did not care about dignity. She descended from the royal box and met her husband at the edge of the sand. "You could have killed him," she said. "Yes." "Why did you not?" Taewon cleaned his blade with a cloth. His hands were steady. "Dead enemies breed revenge. Their children grow up with hatred in their hearts. Their allies become your enemies. The cycle never ends." He sheathed the sword. "But a defeated enemy who is shown mercy, he has to live with that mercy. He has to explain to everyone why he was spared. And perhaps, eventually, he has to ask himself whether the man who spared him is truly his enemy. That is a very human way of thinking." "Yes, it is." He looked at her, and she saw exhaustion behind his calm expression. "May we return to our quarters? I would like to rest." She took his arm. Together they walked out of the arena while the crowd continued to cheer. Behind them, Emperor Valdros Valsorath remained seated. His ancient face showed no expression, but his eyes followed the human with new interest. The test was complete, and humanity had passed. The palace had not stopped buzzing since the duel. Servants whispered in the corridors, nobles gathered in small groups, speaking in hushed tones. The entire empire was talking about what had happened in the arena. The harmless human had defeated Lord Kethral. Elindra watched from her window as another delegation arrived at the palace gates. Since yesterday, nobles from distant worlds had been traveling to Sorath Prime. Some wanted to see the human who had embarrassed their greatest warrior. Others wanted to reassess their opinions about the human alliance. Lord Kethral's faction had collapsed overnight. The nobles who had openly mocked Taewon now avoided eye contact with him. Those who had called him a pet now bowed respectfully when he passed. Fear had replaced contempt. Taewon seemed not to notice the change. He went about his daily routine as if nothing had happened. He still woke before dawn. He still practiced in the garden. He still smiled at everyone, even those who had once insulted him. But now the smiles were returned. Emperor Valdros summoned Taewon to a private audience. Elindra was not invited, but she learned what happened from her father's own lips. "I asked him why he did not kill Kethral," the emperor told her afterward. "He had every right. The law permitted it. Every witness expected it." "What did he say?" "He said something interesting." Valdros stroked his chin thoughtfully. "He said that dead enemies breed vengeance, but spared enemies can become allies. And if not allies, then at least lessons for others. That sounds like something a philosopher would say." "That is what I thought, so I asked him another question." The emperor's eyes were distant, remembering. "I asked him about human warriors. Are there many like him? Are they all trained in such deadly arts?" What was his answer? Valdros was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "He told me there are humans far more dangerous than him, that Earth has warriors who make him look like a beginner, but they prefer not to lead with violence. It is their last resort, not their first." Elindra felt a chill. "Do you believe him?" "I do not know. But I do know that I underestimated humanity. I thought they were weak because they were young. I thought their kindness was foolishness. He shook his head slowly. I was wrong. Their kindness is a choice. Their patience is a strategy. And when they stop being kind and patient... He did not finish the sentence. He did not need to. That evening, Elindra found Tae-wan in the garden where he always practiced. But today he was not holding his sword. He was just sitting on a stone bench, looking at the stars. "May I join you?" she asked. "Of course." She sat beside him. The night air was cool and smelled of blooming flowers. 3 moons hung in the sky, casting silver light across the garden. "The entire empire is talking about you," she said. "They will stop eventually. Something else will capture their attention." "You do not enjoy the recognition?" "I do not seek it." He turned to look at her. "I did what was necessary. Nothing more. You could have killed Kethral. It would have been easier. Easier in the moment. Harder in the long term." He picked up a fallen leaf and turned it over in his hands. "On Earth, we have learned that every war creates the seeds of the next war. Every enemy killed becomes a martyr. Every victory through violence is temporary. But victory through mercy is permanent. Not permanent, but longer lasting." He let the leaf drift to the ground. "Kethral is alive. He was defeated, humiliated, but he is alive. Now he has to decide what that means. He can spend the rest of his life hating me, or he can learn from what happened. The choice is his. What if he chooses hatred? Then he does. I cannot control his decisions." Tae-wan shrugged. "But I gave him the opportunity to choose differently. That is all anyone can do." Elindra considered his words. They were strange to her. Velhari culture valued decisive victory. Enemies were destroyed, not spared. To show mercy was considered weakness. But was it really? Kethral had tried to destroy Taiwan and failed. If Taiwan had killed him, the story would have been simple. A human killed a Velhari lord in a fair fight. Impressive, but ultimately just another death. Instead, the story was far more complex. The human had defeated the Lord completely and then chosen not to kill him. That choice said more about humanity than any death could have. "I owe you an apology," Elindra said. Tae-wan looked surprised. "For what?" "For everything. For believing you were weak. For being disappointed in my own husband. For not seeing who you really were. You saw what I wanted you to see. That is not your fault. Still, I was wrong." She took a deep breath. "I would like to start again. Not as political partners. Not as strangers forced together by diplomacy. But as something real." Tae-wan was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was soft. "I would like that very much, Elindra." It was the first time he had used her name without her title. She reached out and took his hand. This time it felt natural. Like something she had been wanting to do for a long time. "Tell me about Earth," she said. "Tell me about your home, your family, the place where you learned to use a sword." He smiled. It was his genuine smile, the one she had only seen a few times before. "It is a small planet," he began, "blue and green, covered mostly in water. Our sun is yellow, and we have only one moon. But to us, it is beautiful." They talked through the night. He told her about Korea, about mountains and rivers and ancient temples, about his grandmother who first taught him to hold a sword, about the philosophy of the warrior who chooses peace. She told him about Sorath Prime, about her childhood in the palace, about the pressures of being heir to an empire, about her fears and hopes and dreams. By the time the sun rose, they were no longer strangers. They were partners. And perhaps, Elindra thought, they were becoming something more. 1 year had passed since the duel that changed everything. The alliance between humanity and the Velari Empire had grown stronger than anyone had expected. Trade agreements were signed. Military cooperation expanded. For the first time in centuries, the Velari had true partners rather than subjects. And at the heart of it all was a marriage that had begun as politics and become something real. Elindra stood in the War Council chamber, surrounded by holographic displays showing battle reports. The Krath Dominion had finally made their move. A combined human Velhari colony on the border had been attacked without warning. Thousands were dead. More were trapped. "We must respond with overwhelming force," General Verath declared. "Crush the Krath completely. Make an example of them." Other generals nodded in agreement. This was the Velhari way. Strike hard. Destroy your enemies. Leave nothing behind. Taiwan stood quietly at Elindra's side. He had earned his place in this council through actions, not words. Now, when he spoke, people listened. "May I offer a different perspective?" The generals fell silent. Some still looked uncomfortable taking advice from a human. But none dared dismiss him anymore. "The Krath attacked because they see our alliance as a threat," Taiwan continued. "If we destroy them completely, we confirm their fears. Other species will see what happens when you oppose us. They will become afraid, and afraid species make desperate choices." "What do you suggest?" General Verath asked. "We cannot let this attack go unpunished. I am not suggesting we do nothing. I am suggesting we be precise." Taiwan manipulated the holographic display, highlighting key positions. "The Krath leadership ordered this attack. The Krath people simply followed orders. If we can remove the leadership that chose war, we can offer peace to the people who remain." "A surgical strike?" "Yes. Eliminate the War Council. Capture or kill those directly responsible. Then offer the Krath population a choice. Continue fighting under new leaders who will also be removed, or accept peace and become trading partners instead of enemies." "That is a very human approach," General Verath said slowly. "Destroy the war, not the species. It has worked for us before." Taiwan met the general's eyes. "We are not asking you to be weak. We are asking you to be strategic. True victory is not measured in bodies. It is measured in lasting peace." The council debated for hours. In the end, they agreed to try the human approach. A joint strike team would be assembled. The best Velhari warriors and human special operators working together. Taiwan would lead them. Elindra found him in their quarters that night, preparing his equipment. His sword lay on the table, freshly cleaned and sharpened. "You do not have to go yourself," she said. "You have proven yourself. No one would question your courage if you stayed. This mission was my idea. If I am not willing to risk myself for it, why should anyone else?" She watched him check his blade. His movements were calm and methodical. He showed no fear. "Promise me you will come back." He looked up at her. "I cannot promise that. War is unpredictable." "Then promise me you will try." He crossed the room and took her hands in his. "I will do everything in my power to return to you. I have too much to live for now." She kissed him. It was not their first kiss, but it felt more important than any that had come before. "Come back to me, Taiwan." "I will." The strike team departed at dawn. 12 Velhari warriors and 8 humans aboard a fast stealth ship designed to slip past Krath defenses. Elindra waited. Days passed. No word came. She attended to her duties, met with diplomats, supervised relief efforts for the attacked colony, but her mind was always elsewhere. On the 5th day, a message arrived. Mission successful. Leadership eliminated. Negotiations beginning. All strike team members returning. Elindra read the message 3 times before she believed it. When the ship landed, she broke protocol entirely. She ran to the landing pad like a common civilian and threw herself into her husband's arms. He held her tight. He smelled of smoke and sweat and exhaustion, but he was alive. "The Krath war leader is dead," he said quietly. "But I gave his second-in-command a choice: surrender and negotiate, or fight and join his master. He chose to surrender." "You spared him? After everything the Krath did?" "I spared the possibility of peace." He pulled back to look at her. "It worked. The Krath are asking for terms. The war is over before it truly began." In the weeks that followed, the galaxy watched in amazement as the Krath Dominion, known for centuries as mindless aggressors, signed a peace treaty with the human Velhari alliance. Trade routes were established. Prisoners were exchanged. The cycle of violence was broken. Other species began to look at humanity differently, not as weak newcomers, not as dangerous conquerors, but as something new, a species that won through wisdom as much as strength. Months later, Elindra and Tae Wan stood together on a balcony overlooking the capital. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of gold and purple. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked. "Being seen as harmless for so long? Hiding what you really were?" He considered the question. "The sharpest blade stays in its sheath until it is truly needed. That is not harmlessness. That is discipline." He took her hand. "The galaxy is learning the difference. And what happens now? Now that they know what humanity can do? Now we build something better." He looked out at the city, at the mixing crowds of Velhari and humans, and even a few Krath traders in the markets below. "We show them that strength does not mean cruelty, that power does not mean domination, that the best victories leave everyone standing." Elindra leaned against him. A year ago, she had thought her marriage was a burden. She had seen her husband as a disappointment. She had believed that kindness was weakness and patience was cowardice. She had been wrong about everything. "I love you," she said. The words came easily now. "I love you too." He kissed her forehead. "My princess. My partner. My home." They stood together as the stars emerged, one by one, filling the sky with light. The galaxy was vast and dangerous and full of species who still saw power in simple terms. But humanity was teaching them a different way, slowly, patiently, one spared enemy at a time. The sword that stayed sheathed was the most dangerous of all, and humanity had only begun to show the galaxy what that meant.